Hello everybody, welcome back to another reading. Today we're taking a look at the case of Hannah Upp, who disappeared on September 17th of 2017. Now, Hannah had disappeared a couple times before, and they diagnosed her as having dissociative fugue, which means that occasionally she would forget who she was and wander off and usually go to places where they don't normally go, which is a very frightening condition to have. Now, after the second time that she went missing, the police actually offered for her to have an ankle bracelet on the entire time to make sure that at least she could be tracked, but she actually refused. And sometime after that, she made a move to the island of St. Thomas, where she was going to start a job as a teacher. And interestingly enough, usually her fugue set in shortly after accepting new work. It's something that somebody pointed out, like it seems she may have had some stress surrounding that, because apparently a dissociative fugue, according to people who know more about it than I, can be caused by all sorts of different types of trauma or stress and things like that. Now, according to people who knew Hannah, she didn't really have that type of stress in her background, and so the starting a new job is pretty much the only thing that people can point to and say maybe this is a cause. In any case, there had been a hurricane at St. Thomas before she disappeared, and a second one was coming, and a lot of people were fleeing the island, but Hannah stayed, saying, "I'm staying, this is where my heart is." And so she decided to weather out the storm. On September 17th, she left her house saying that she was going to go to work, but she didn't arrive there, and she would not be found again. They did go and look for her on her favorite beach, and they found her car there along with her car keys, and I think also her wallet and passport. A whole bunch of personal belongings were at the beach, but no sign of Hannah herself. Now, some people doubt that she actually forgot who she was, because during the second time, I think it was the second time that she went missing, she actually logged into one of her Gmail accounts from an Apple store, and she also went to several sports clubs to take a shower. Now, that might just come across as, well, she probably felt like she needed to wash herself even if she didn't know who she was, so she went to a sports club to take a shower. But apparently, at least at the sports clubs in New York where she was, you have to identify yourself in order to be let inside, so she must have been able to identify herself somehow, and that is why they think that she's actually just putting on a show. Although I gotta say, this would have to be a pretty elaborate and drawn out show, because of course it's been 5 years now that she went missing for the third time, and on an island as big as St. Thomas, I don't think you can go missing for that long without somebody seeing you somewhere or having some clue about your whereabouts. Anyway, that is why we're taking a look at this case now with the tarot. On the table we have the Smith-Waite deck, which is this one. It's very similar to the Rider-Waite, but a slightly different writer and slightly different art style as well, different coloring anyway. And for any further questions, we're going to go to the Vice Versa tarot deck, which is this one, which is the cards with the double sides. So you can see two sides of the same coin. Before I get started, if you have a publicly known case that you would like me to do a reading on, make sure to go to the Google form that I linked in the description under the video, so you can put it there, and then I can add that to my list. That's the easiest way for me to collect people who I should do readings on from you guys. So if you want to do that, that'd be great. As per usual, now I'm just going to start shuffling the cards. As soon as we have enough cards to fill the screen, I'm going to stop and we're going to take a look at what we've got. So without much further ado, let's get started. Okay, so this is an unusual one. After a while, there were just no more cards to have for this round. I kept shuffling the deck and asking for more cards and just getting this feeling of, no, this is it for now. We're going to have to start with 2 less than we usually do. Now, I think I also managed to record the part where basically the deck exploded. There was a lot of energy there all of a sudden. I think it was right about here that happened. So there was a lot of energy there, and also interesting to note that there was, of course, the 5 of Cups there in particular that will land on the floor, so that one I definitely needed to keep. But also we have here Temperance in reverse, so that's losing a temper, and the 8 of Wands is a lot of energy, so that makes sense that we have that at that moment. We started off though with one of the special cards that is only in this deck. I don't even know what this card is called. It looks a little bit like what would happen before the 3 Cups combined with the 3 of Swords. So I'm just going to I'm gonna call this Gossip, because there is, maybe I should write it on the card as well, because if you notice there are 2 people and they appear to be in a garden somewhere, and it looks as though they're just having a conversation. But if you were to see the full image of this, which is sadly cut off on this card, you would see that there is somebody in the back there in the yellow dress coming around what looks like a hedge. So these 2 people are actually in a secluded area talking, and from the expression on this person's face, whom you unfortunately can't see in the card, they're surprised to see those 2 people there. So this seems a bit like walking in on a private conversation that is not something you should have heard. It may have been negative towards you or something along those lines, like they were not expecting that. So this seems to me, particularly with the combination of these 3 over here, walking in on something that you weren't supposed to hear, that may be directed at you, or perhaps you feel like it's directed at you. Like sometimes you hear people say stuff and you're like, oh, they're talking about me, that type of thing. So that type of shock maybe to the system, followed by the 5 of Cups, which is crying over spilled milk. So this might be them having an issue with whatever it is that they heard or witnessed, and having a bit of a depressive episode, because normally it's just somebody looking at cups that have fallen over, but this one really has a very dark cloak which they are using to cover their face, and potentially also blocking out any other possibilities. For instance, they can't look behind them to see the 2 cups that are still there. They're also ignoring the fact that there's a bridge over there which they could use to go elsewhere. And interestingly enough, all these cups appear to have had wine in them, except for one that appears to have some water at the bottom there, like a blue colored puddle instead of the red one. So maybe it wasn't quite all that they thought it was. But in any case, they lost their temper as a result of that, because we have Temperance in reverse, followed by the 8 of Wands. Like I said, a lot of energy, a lot of imbalance. So this is definitely a shock to the system that is perhaps also communicated in some way, because the 8 of Wands is also often something associated with digital communication. Somebody may have texted, somebody may have wrote an email, and maybe she read more into that than she should have. Like if you have a certain type of social anxiety or something along those lines, I'm not saying that that's what you had, but just if you have that type of thing and you're like likely to feel like people are talking about you, you start reading between the lines and you start like seeing things that aren't there. And I think that that is really what's happening. Maybe she got a communication from somebody and she didn't like the tone, even though it may not have been meant like that at all. So something like that appears to have happened, and that really knocked her off her balance. Next we see Justice, Magician, and the Empress. So there is a sense of trying to get some justice perhaps, and also trying to bring about this justice themselves. Maybe they were trying somehow to sort these things out, and the Magician in that sense was helping her to try and do that. At least she perhaps tried her best to get behind things, and also started to take care of herself more, because the Empress here could also be somebody else who stepped in to try and care for her, maybe a friend or something that they confided in, or I don't know, they just wanted to be with in order to feel a little bit better about themselves. But it looks as though they went on a little investigative thing, and perhaps that led to some very negative findings, because the bottom row is all reversed over here. It starts off with the 10 of Pentacles in reverse, which is something almost like a denial of inheritance. It could be that there is an issue with your future prospects. Could also be that you feel like there's an issue with that, like maybe you feel in this state that all the stuff that you thought you were going to acquire is now no longer certain. This leads to an Ace of Wands in reverse, which is a bad initiative. We have the Six of Cups in reverse, which is often like childhood memories and stuff like this. This could be the part where the fugue sets in, because there is this whole negativity over here and maybe a little bit of self-care on the end right there, and then we have feelings of everything's lost, everything's gone, and then suddenly we are off and we don't know who we are anymore, because this Six of Cups over here is normally like a childhood memory thing, a melancholy thing, and it could be that that was just gone. And it may have led her to maybe trying to find things from her childhood, from her past, to calm her down, which led to misadventures, represented by the Ace of Wands in reverse. We have the Seven of Pentacles and the Nine of Pentacles both in reverse. Now the Seven of Pentacles is normally just watching your investments grow, and literally what he's doing over there is watching all the stuff that he's put hard work in growing on the vine. It's almost ripe, it's almost ready, but in this case it feels like initiatives that were taken in the past to try and guarantee an outcome, like the Nine of Pentacles, where you are comfortably, wouldn't say necessarily wealthy, but at least well off in resources, had become undone because these initiatives did not pan out. So it looks as though either they felt like they didn't have anything to rely on anymore, or they were somehow aware, even in that state that they were in, that they no longer had anything to rely on or to fall back on, it looks as though. So let's see, because this looks like the very early stage of that event where she wandered off, whether in a fugue state or not. Feeling very hard done by, feeling like they've lost all of their future payouts, I guess, of their endeavors. Let's see if we can find anything about what happened after that. See if we can get anything from the vice versa deck on this. Whoop. Got one card on the floor. The King of Pentacles in reverse. King of Pentacles is normally somebody who is fairly careful with the resources, well, careful planning things out, will also possibly help people with their resources if there is an issue, but in this case it's reversed again. And I'm noticing, of course, that he is surrounded by the bountiful harvest. I see some grapes, I see some other fruits and veg in the background at his feet, but I think that this is once again pointing towards the fact that there was none of that to be had, and there was also no charity given. And maybe even people taking advantage of that, because the king, of course, is often representing a person. It could be Hannah making mistakes with her own resources, like investing them unwisely, but I don't think she had a lot to invest, because I think she left everything at her car at the beach, or at the beach itself. I think they found a bunch of stuff on the beach as well. But I think this may be somebody either taking advantage or just another reminder that there is no resource to fall back on, it seems. Maybe even an attempt at like getting at a bank account or something. Somebody lording over her finances and not allowing her access, perhaps. Let's see what else we can get, because so far we're just at the start of this thing. Okay, so all the things that she's trying is currently not panning out because the wizard is back, or a magician, sorry. I keep saying wizard. He looks almost exactly like that guy, but it's in reverse, so whatever possibilities that they thought they may have had, whatever things they thought they could try, did not pan out. So she may have been trying to do something, like she may have been wandering around trying to arrange things for herself, and that just didn't work out at all. Real quick before I go, this is not the magician, this is actually the wheel, so that's also interesting. So the wheel cannot turn, and that's why the magician cannot do its job. Oops, yeah, I was about to say one card in particular keeps drawing my attention, and it's this one. Every time I'm shuffling the deck, that one draws my attention. We have here the Nine of Swords, which is a lot of anxiety, a lot of worry, and it's almost a little bit like the Eight of Swords, which is like being trapped in your mind, but this one seems to be trapping themselves from something. Normally it's a lot of anxiety, a lot of worry, but it's also forming a shield of swords, like trying to keep them right there in that dark corner where the anxiety lives, so to speak. So I think that at this point she was feeling trapped and she just could not find her way out. It's a mental thing as well, a lot of anxiety. Again, with the Seven of Pentacles, it comes back a second time, also in reverse. So this is a lot of repeats of feeling helpless and hopeless and just having nothing to rely on. So this is her wandering around, it seems, and feeling lost, dazed, confused, and without anybody to care for her. We do see here the Six of Wands, which is an interesting card, because Six of Wands is normally like a triumphant card, so maybe she actually found somebody or some way to survive somehow, or found a crowd of people who were willing to help, although this is the reverse side, which is the more dark side. This is normally the celebratory side where you can see people cheering them on, but if you flip it, then it's somebody who once again appears to be behind something, and there's people with bloody vests on with their sticks raised in the air, and there's a bunch of fire smoke in the background. So maybe the glow over here is fire and not dusk, and it seems as though maybe that's also a losing of a reputation, or yeah, basically just being confused about what people are trying to tell you as well, perhaps, because the guy on the horse does not appear to be looking at the people. No, he's not looking at the people that are like yelling at them with their sticks and trying to get the attention of this person on the horse. So they may have also been a little bit aloof, and I think that is then possibly also just trying to avoid anybody who's trying to get their attention. Like she may have been lost and confused, and also avoiding people that she didn't know. Maybe people that she actually did know, but she didn't know that she knew them or knew them. So it might not be quite a hero card, but more of a what am I doing here? Who am I? I'm lost. Why are these people trying to talk to me type of card. So she's still wondering. Okay, this one kind of wanted to fall. It's balancing on my thumb. Usually I do take them when doing that. So this is the Knight of Swords in reverse. So this might be them talking up a storm. I like to say that with the Knight of Swords, because the Knight of Swords is literally flying through the storm, and perhaps even chasing some birds. Now, the Knight of Swords is often very quick with their words, may not always say the best thing at the best time, and in reverse I do tend to see that a lot as somebody who is perhaps not speaking the truth, and maybe not even in a negative sense, like trying to deceive, but more like trying to keep people at bay by, oh no, I live here, I'm from just down the road, I'm new, that type of thing, like trying to avoid people, trying to avoid being stared at, trying to avoid questions by just answering whatever comes to mind to keep them at bay. Seems as though, so they're lost, confused, they feel like they've got nothing left, they feel trapped, and they're evading questions at this point. And that is Justice in reverse, so definitely feeling like they're being very hard done by. There is an injustice being carried out here. This could be that somebody did something to her, or she could just be feeling very hard done by. Could also point towards perhaps doing things that aren't quite legal because you don't know that they're not legal, or you just don't have any options. If you don't have any money, you don't have any place to stay, you might do some things that aren't quite right just to survive. So could be any of those things. Let's see if we can get any more clarification about that from the next card. What this reverse justice is pointing at. Okay, we have the Seven of Wands now. This one is upright, and that is people coming for your position. Jealousy, although if you turn the card around you can see that there's actually nobody there. It could be perceived. Look, there's nobody actually there according to this card, so they're standing there and pretending that they're being besieged by people, but they're actually perhaps just seeing ghosts. In any case, they are doing a lot of stuff because the wands are an actions suit, so they might be doing things to try and evade capture or evade suspicion, or just evade people in general. So a little bit more of the Knight of Swords energy, we have the Three of Swords in reverse. Three is a crown normally, but in this case it's like reversed and flipped. Normally it would be just the usual three swords piercing a heart and causing all sorts of wounds, relationship trauma, that sort of thing. But in this case it's maybe trying to prop things up. Like the flower in the background is being shielded by the shield being held up by the three swords that are stabbed through it. So maybe this is a story that they spun in order to get some sympathy from people, but it's not quite the whole story. So maybe she found somebody whom she could spin a tale for in order for them to help them out, maybe. Or somebody else was telling them stories in order to get them to follow them, perhaps. Oh, that one. Okay. Four of Cups on its side, unable to make up your mind and even missing the little things that may have been a positive for you, like the tiny little fish that's in one of the cups right there. We are on a beach though, interestingly enough. So she definitely went to a beach, I think. And maybe she felt like she didn't have any options there. At least she didn't see any options to be had. What's the other side look like? Okay, the other side is like the ocean itself and sailing away. So this is possibly them just ignoring any options that they may have had with the Four of Cups on its side and flipped as well. It's almost reversed, like they're just not seeing any options. And maybe they just don't know of any options, like that's why they're not choosing anything, because there's nothing for them to choose. I'm gonna leave it like that because it was on its side. Let's see what else we can get. Oh. This one also tried to pop out. Oh, and that one. Okay, so we are working hard on something. And we are taking a break because the Four of Swords is usually taking retreat, retreating from the world. As you can see, the person is sitting inside and the world outside is burning, even though they're taking a nap. So I think after a while she just decided to lay low somewhere and focus on other things. Maybe she tried starting a new life somewhere, because the Eight of Pentacles is a card of focusing, hard work, and trying to apply your craft as well as you can. This could be happening simultaneously, like while she is out. You can see that the person on the card over here actually has her eyes closed. They do not appear to be aware of anything that's happening outside, which could point towards her not being aware that people are looking for her, because she just isn't aware that she's missing, while she's also trying to apply her craft somewhere else. So this may be her setting up shop somewhere else, perhaps literally, perhaps figuratively, because a lot of people who have had these dissociative fugues, they end up someplace completely different and just under a different name doing different things. So I guess that's like the hope as well of the people who knew her, that she may be somewhere else under a different name and just not aware that her name is Hannah Upp. But in any case, these cards are pointing towards her at least trying that at some point. Let's see what else we can get. This one, oop, and this one. Okay. Oh, we do have the Eight of Swords this time, and we also have the Queen of Swords. Now, the Queen of Swords is the calmer version of the Knight of Swords that we had over here. So I think this points towards a more settled story about herself and more settled answers to questions that people might ask her, like about the past, where's she from, what did she do, where did she go to school, that type of thing. And meanwhile, we are still trapped in our mind with this Eight of Swords. So this points very much towards her just having assumed a different identity, perhaps, and just being trapped in this mental state, but perhaps not even really being aware of it, because it is reversed. I'm gonna flip this one and move you guys so I can put this one on the end. So this definitely occurred at some point. She's still stuck in that mind at this point. Let's see if we can get any updates, like what's happening right now with her, because it has been 5 years. It's almost September, so it's been almost 5 years since she went missing. Okay, we have the Nine of Cups. That's somebody who's feeling pretty good. So if I were to believe these cards, then that would mean that she is actually not doing too badly. She may just be living somewhere else. She may no longer be on the island. Who knows how she managed to get off the island without identifying herself, but maybe the case that she found some way, because for whatever reason, people who really want to go somewhere, they'll find a way. So maybe this card is pointing towards her actually having a good time, at least feeling pretty well balanced emotionally in her new location. Let's see what else we can get about that. What is she up to these days? King of Wands. Okay, that's somebody who knows exactly what they want, and they also know how to go out and get it. Might be that she's currently in a position where she is a go-getter, and perhaps also well known for that, being fiery and making things happen around her. She may be known as an organizer. She may be known as somebody who is very entrepreneurial. Like anything that she sets her mind to, she manages to achieve. Okay, we have the Ace of Pentacles. That's in reverse though, so that might mean that even though she is doing, at least she's very hardwired to get things done, some things don't always work out right. Particularly like financially, perhaps she's not doing too great. Perhaps some initiatives that she took did not pan out. So what are we looking at then? Okay, we have the Knight of Wands. Okay, so this is her then just continuing on bravely, trying to make things work regardless whether whether it's in the cards or not. Just that same stubbornness that the King of Wands has in wanting to achieve things, the Knight of Wands has in just going completely head over heels, just trying to make things work against all odds. Are we going to find her at all? Are we going to figure out where she is? Is she going to figure out who she is? We've got the Five of Pentacles in reverse and the Seven of Cups. Okay, so Five of Pentacles is normally like in a bankruptcy type of thing. And a Seven of Cups over here is normally like wishing for things, wishful thinking. I feel like she does feel like there is something missing. And she wishes she could figure out what it was. So if she's still out there, then she might have a feeling like something's not quite right. Something's missing, somebody's missing. Maybe she also doesn't quite know why she doesn't have answers to where did she go to school, that type of thing. Even though she is pretty good at coming up with answers on the fly, and she may have had or developed a good story in between time, but I think that she is still trying to figure out what that missing puzzle piece is, and wishing that she could settle it for her own sense of emotional well-being as well, with the Seven of Cups right there. Let's pull a couple more cards just to finish this. I said, are we ever going to figure out where she is? Is she going to come back to her family, back to her senses? Let's see, that one. Okay, the last card that we got here is the Hierophant in reverse and flipped. It kind of says that the powers that be are not even looking at her. Hierophant is normally somebody who is fairly well known in the community, could also represent bureaucracy, could represent the church, some type of leader within the community. Could be that they are not looking at the right person because they have their whole chair facing outward, when behind them they have the key. So maybe they're not quite looking in the right places, and they're also just focusing on the wrong things. And I think that Hannah herself has a key somewhere in the back of her mind as well. This might also be pointing towards the person, like the person who is currently facing outward. That personality does not know that the key lays behind them inside, like in the subconscious almost. You can see that as well with the apple there that's been cut open. I think that also represents the subconscious, like the stuff that's inside that's normally hidden. If you were to cut it open, you can see that there is more than meets the eye. And I think the baby with the key is definitely pointing towards their being a key somewhere in the back of her mind that's currently not yet utilized, but that doesn't mean that it's not there. So if she's still out there, and I think that there are ways that she could snap out of it and figure out who she is, but this might just take a long time because the subconscious tends to work slowly and with all sorts of signs and omens and things like that that you are then pulled to look at, and you have to collect all the puzzle pieces before you can actually lay the puzzle down and see what the answer is. So if she's out there, then she might eventually snap out of it, and all she needs to do is perhaps meditate on those questions of where am I, who am I, why can't I figure out where I grew up, that type of thing. And then perhaps we'll see her coming back out of the woodwork. That is what I'm seeing for Hannah. I hope you found that interesting. In the meantime, make sure to leave a like and a comment. That really helps the channel along. We'd like to grow to at least 1,000. That'd be really cool. And I'll see you in another video. Thanks for watching, and bye bye for now.